Okay, hi everybody. Welcome to the October 12th Women in Technology Virtual Chapter technical session. We appreciate you registering. We appreciate you being part of the virtual chapter. We appreciate you attending today. Century One, formerly known as SQL Century, has generously agreed to sponsor the WIT virtual chapter for the full year. And as a result, we are able to give away one Amazon gift card per session. So we'll be giving one of those away today. I want to say it's $50, but I would have to stop what I'm doing right now and check email to confirm that amount. But if you registered with your email address, the winner will be chosen at the end of the webinar, and we will let you know how we and to get details on how to get that to you. Oops, hold on, did I skip? Okay. Upcoming webinars, SQL, the PASSWIT group is Imposter Syndrome, Are You Faking It and Will They Find Out? Wendy Cornut's going to do that one for us. She's actually presenting this that I know of in Portland, Oregon in less than 2 weeks. And I'm going to get to see it right there. She's done this one a couple of times that I know of. As always, if you're unable to make it to the session in November, and specifically that's November 16th, that's on a Wednesday as well. If you're unable to make it, just like this session, the Imposter Syndrome session will be recorded and posted to our YouTube page. And if you're a registrant, we'll actually get an email with that link so that you can follow up later. Make sure that you check us out on our YouTube page. This slide deck will be made available as well, or you can just go to YouTube and do a search on SQL PASSWIT and find us that way. Check out our homepage, wit.sqlpass.org. That page shows any upcoming webinars, any upcoming women speakers at SQL Saturdays, and also has a list of every woman speaker that will be presenting at Summit in 2 weeks. If you're not already a member of our virtual chapter through sqlpass.org, please remember that virtual chapter membership is free, as is SQL Pass. And you'll get our monthly newsletter that typically has an article written by my co-leader, Kathy Kellenberger, and links to articles that she and I or different people in the community have found interesting. Let me also encourage you to follow us on Twitter at PASSWIT. There's the underbar there. And follow the hashtag PASSWIT. If you find an interesting article or you find some information that you want to share with us, tweet that out with the hashtag. I have TweetDeck open, and I actually have a column for that, and I follow it. It's a great way to share information. So upcoming SQL Saturdays, Oregon is in, like I mentioned, is in a week and a half. It's in Portland. Amy Harold, who we mentioned just a moment ago, who is going to be speaking at Speaker Idol at Summit, trying to get a slot for next year, is presenting there. Mickey Stewie's out of California. Catherine's out of Norway. She did our WIT session a couple of months ago on being an accidental data warehouse guru. And of course, Wendy Pastrick was just re-elected to the PASS Board of Directors. She's speaking. And then I'll be presenting my Women in Technology, Identifying and Understanding Gender Bias and Inequality session there as well. And Orlando actually was postponed due to Hurricane Matthew, and it's already been rescheduled for November the 12th. So Amy Harold again will be at that one. Janice Griffin, Jessica Moss. Oh, Janice has 2 sessions. That's awesome. I suspect one of those, maybe she's giving it twice. One of those might be a sponsor session and just the name is wrong on my slide. I will check that and try to get that confirmed. And now on to today's topic. Melody is one of my best friends, and she was gracious enough to do this session for us here. She's done it at a number of SQL Saturdays. I think most recently Kansas City, just a few weeks ago. She's Canadian. So count how many times she says a. during the session if you want, and send me a number at the end. But she was awarded her MVP last year, so I'm very proud of her for that as well. She's regional mentor. She blogs, and she actually is an entrepreneur and runs her company, which she may or may not talk about today. But I've seen this session and I got a lot out of it, so I was really, really pleased. So give me 1 second, Melody. I will turn this over to you. I will mute my microphone for the time being, and if any of you have any questions at any point during the session, feel free to ask it, and Melody has agreed that I can keep an eye on those and ask as they go, or if you want to hold all your questions to the end, I'm sure she'll have some time for that as well. So Melody, I will let you go ahead. I can see your screen fine.
Excellent. And can you hear me okay?
Muted, but yes, I can hear you just fine.
Yeah, I should have asked you that before you muted. Sorry about that. Good morning, everyone. Well, morning for me because I'm on the West Coast. I understand that those on the East Coast, it's lunchtime, and other parts of the world, who knows? This is Introduction to Analytics, Turning Data into Intelligent Action. It's focused mostly on the Cortana suite, and it's a very high-level presentation. The reason I chose to do this presentation was because I found that there was quite a few very technical people in our field that have not quite embraced the cloud platform, and Microsoft has made some huge leaps and bounds in that platform recently, and I found that the sheer volume of different options available was a bit overwhelming, and even to some of my staff, they were like, well, what is this data stream and how does it relate to a data lake? There was a lot of terminology that was new to people that they really didn't see or understand how the whole package fit together. So the idea behind this session was to really give people that high level overview, so that they had an idea of how all of these pieces fit together and what the purpose of it was. So I'm going to talk about that today. So just to give you I know Ree gave me a fantastic intro, and I do apologize for saying process or process. She's been bugging me about it for over a year, and I still can't remember which is the right one.
It makes me laugh every time. Sorry, I'll mute again, sorry.
No, that's okay. I still don't know which is the right one. But I probably say that more than I say A, because I've worked honestly really hard at not saying A because it makes me sound uneducated for some reason. So I've got a real thing about not saying A, so you might not get too many of those after this particular slide. So a little bit about me. Oh, there we go. I was worried my slides weren't working. So as Ree had said, I'm both a regional mentor for Canada and I am a chapter leader. I was lucky enough to be awarded the Microsoft Most Valuable Professional earlier this year, and probably I suspect that has to do with the fact that I absolutely love our community, the SQL community in general, and IT and technology. I do run my own company called ClearSight Solutions. We are constantly hiring and looking for great people in the industry. We specialize in business intelligence for banks and financial institutions. All of my details are up there, and you can get a hold of me at any time. I do check my email fairly often. And if you happen to see me at Summit or another SQL Saturday event, I love to talk about tech, and I love to talk about SQL. Anything that interests you, come by and chat with me. I love to network as well and meet new people, so if you have an opportunity, I would love to see you. I will be at the Community Zone at SQL Pass, for sure, for Canada Hour, which is between 9 and 10 on Friday morning. I know it's really early at the end of this conference, but we'll make it worth your while. Canadians are a great group of people. So I have blogged, I listed my blog up here. I have blogged on all the topics, or a lot of the topics that we're going to talk about today. So if you want more information, because this is a high-level session, if you want a little bit more information, please visit my blog and get a few more details, or send me an email. So what's our agenda? We're going to talk about why is Cortana and this whole process important to us as professionals. Then we'll talk a little bit about how the data platform in general has changed. Then we're going to talk about what are those pieces? How do we make these pieces work together to do something for us? Then I'm going to give you a couple of easy demo examples that you can try out and play with at home that are fun to play with. And then we're going to talk about our conclusion. And let's get started. So why? Why is this important? Data science, machine learning, analytics are all becoming a core piece of the success of for all of our businesses as well as us as professionals. We need to know how these different pieces are going to affect what we do. We want to know how can we use it to help our business and our clients. How often are you sitting at your desk and somebody's having a conversation in the hallway talking about technology, they have a problem, and often they're looking to their IT department and technical professionals to give them those answers. So in this session we're going to look at some of what those topics are. We're going to learn how it helps us turn data into intelligence. And what I mean by that is when somebody has a problem, so you've got a business problem and it's up to you as an IT professional to turn that into money. That's what makes the business grow, and that's why we have our jobs. If we weren't making the business money, if we were just a cost center, then they would be downsizing their IT and outsourcing it to consultants. So the idea behind this is we want to be able to bring value to the business. That's really what our job is as data professionals, bringing value to our business, not just being a cost center. We're just not moving data around. We have to solve problems or there's no reason to keep us. So a big part of this is giving you that whole overall sense of what this Cortana suite is and what it does. This is what we're going to use to be able to answer those questions. So back to my example of somebody talking in the hallway near your desk. They're having a conversation and say it's a marketing department. And marketing is wondering, how am I going to determine if my new marketing campaign is worthwhile? Well, my first thought on that is, as a data professional, what does that have to do with me? Well, actually a lot. We can bring value to that by helping them determine with concrete data what the ROI on that is going to be. And there's a whole bunch of different ways that we can use analytics to determine that. So let's talk about how we can make that happen. Recently, Microsoft has rebranded SQL Server into a data platform. Now, to some people that might just sound like we're changing the name. Is that important? What does it mean? Well, what it means is they are no longer just focusing on SQL Server as a single unit. They're looking at things more holistically. They want to look at things as a large group of data that create an entire platform that's not just SQL Server. So how has this changed over time? The data has changed from a single stream input, our typical transactional processing, SQL servers or traditional BI with monthly aggregates. So back in 2010 when I was working in IT and doing business intelligence for banks, if you were doing monthly aggregates for your data warehouse, this was fantastic. There was talk of the pie in the sky, daily aggregates, and that was only for usually very large corporations that had cutting-edge hardware and software that would be able to go fast enough to process that volume of data. So we've changed from smaller volumes, slower hardware, to now how far have we come? We've got multi-stream inputs, we've got the Internet of Things, which is just exploding. We've got on-demand BI with real-time transaction processing. We've gone way past thinking daily was the new cutting edge. So we're changing the frame of how we can do things so what we can do with the data has to change as well. Cloud processing is becoming more and more the norm. There are still restrictions on some financial institutions, things to do with security, and we're not going to get into that in this topic. I just want to talk a bit more about how things have changed and how far we've come. So this is going to give you that data platform overview, so we get a clear picture on what all the different pieces are. So this piece, I've put the link at the bottom, and I have a bunch of links at the end of my slide deck so that you can get a lot more information from the Microsoft site. And I've taken this particular picture from their site directly because I couldn't really describe it better of what this Cortana Intelligence Suite is all about. This is truly how we take the data and turn it into action. There's a lot that happens in that little cloud in the middle, and as data professionals we're familiar with that cloud representing many different things. But as data professionals we also sometimes get caught in the weeds. So this is a nice high-level look at the new world order, as it were. So we can look at data from any source that can be used to answer questions for the business's needs. Information about almost anything. We've got apps, sensors, devices, telephone, or mobile phones, refrigerators. Everything is now able to send data. So with all of that information, what we're realizing as data professionals and as our industry evolves is we're realizing there's a whole lot of hidden solutions that are tied into all of that data, and I think in a lot of cases we're just really tipping the iceberg of what's available and what we can determine from that. What is going to be revealed with this? It sometimes reminds me of a bit of a magic show, like what's going to be revealed next week, because there's always something new coming about. So then we get into the automation of systems and processes that's going to take that data and turn it into something useful. It's going to give reports to people, there's going to be apps that you can use, there's going to be automated systems. So some examples of that, just to give you an idea of the kinds of things I'm talking about, it's when you use your telephone or your mobile phone to connect to your thermostat at home, realize that you've not set your temperature for the vacation you're about to go on, and you want to turn that temperature down, and you can actually go and turn that temperature down on your app. So that's an end-to-end small process. It allows you to take data, get data, return data, and make changes. So these are some of the things that are just going to change how we do things behind the scenes. It's going to be something that we're going to take for granted possibly, but if we start thinking about it, we can turn that into money for the businesses that we work for, as well as good solutions for our customers. But as data professionals, it's the weeds that really excite us. It's the details of what's going on and what does this mean for us as data professionals. So what I wanted to do today is take a look at some of these different pieces at a very high level. How do these pieces of the puzzle fit together in Cortana's Intelligence Suite? What is the difference between a data factory and a data catalog, that type of thing? What's the difference between a data stream and a data lake? These are the things that I find people get overwhelmed with. They're really not sure which one is which, what it does, where it's for, and how do I use it. It's much easier as data professionals to solve problems when we know what our tools are. So I wanted to give this overview so that everybody had an idea of what the different tools were and how we could use them. After that, it's just a matter of learning. It's what data professionals do best. We absorb information and we turn it into solutions. So these are some of the data intelligence options available. Now, I didn't include SQL Server in here in much detail, and the data warehouse or Power BI. These are things that are really becoming mainstream. These are the ones, SQL Server, either on-premise or off-premise. basically in all of its forms. It's the one we know and love for the most part as data professionals. There are many sessions around that you can check out on that. There's huge amounts of information on the internet. So there's a lot of sessions that can cover that. Each one of these that I'm going to go into, I'm going to give you just the bare basics, because each of these could be a huge session all on their own. There are so many different options for each of these that in some cases, particularly with HDInsight, I'm just going to give you a glimpse into what's possible, not really get into any detail. So let's take a look at some of those. So the data lake in particular, I like to think of that one as a lake by the cottage. It's vast, it's got this huge ecosystem, doesn't have a lot of structure, there's some rocky shores, some swampy areas, maybe a bog or two that we can get stuck in, and if we're lucky, even a beach. That's kind of how I think of it. It's this huge melting pot of information. The data stream is a steady flow into the lake. I like those analogies because they're easy for me to remember. I know what a stream is, I know what a lake is. The stream flows into the lake, totally makes sense, easy to remember. I hope that helps you. Then if we move on to HDInsight, sorry, excuse me. This is Microsoft's cloud service. It provides managed platform for Apache, Hadoop, Spark, R, HBase, and Storm, and a few others. This is a huge suite. So I'll touch on that a little bit later and give you a few links at the end to get more details. Data Factory. This is our SSIS in the cloud. It automates and controls movement in the cloud, works very similar to SSIS. We'll talk about that a bit. Then the data catalog. This is our subject matter expert. Data, as we all know, is knowledge. Data cleansing, verification, and documentation of that data are often missed on projects, in businesses, and this is a new tool in the cloud that allows us to do that in a very useful way. So we'll talk about that one as well. And then very quickly, we'll touch on predictive analytics, as that is our machine learning section. This is the section that's getting a lot of press recently because of big leaps and bounds that have been made with artificial intelligence and predictive sales and different. Now that we've integrated R into the platform of SQL Server on 2016, there's a lot of new uses for machine learning in that realm as well. So the data lake. This is big data storage. It's unlimited storage and it's suitable for storing a whole bunch of different types of analytics. Some of them are listed here on the slide, but it basically takes in everything. It can take in regularly formatted relational data, but there's no limits on account sizes, file sizes, or the amount of data. Files can range from just kilobytes to large petabytes in size, making it a great storage location for any kind of data. Essentially, it's unformatted, it's unconstrained, doesn't have a schema, and there's no transformations that are required. That, along with this no file size limit, makes it a little bit different from a data blob store in that it can have up to a terabyte page for a blob, whereas 500 terabytes per container. So it's definitely a lot larger of a solution than our traditional data blob. It's very secure. Azure Data Lake Stores uses Azure's Active Directory. This allows authentication, access control lists, and allows you to manage who has access to that data. All authentication is multi-factor. It has conditional access, role-based access, as well as security monitoring and alerting. So those are some really key features to making sure that you have safe data as well as usable data. It's also stored durably by making redundant copies to guard against any unexpected failures. So that, I know, can be a concern when people are putting data into the cloud. And it's also compatible with most Apache open source tools, as well as Azure services, Hadoop clusters, data lake analytics, stream analytics, data catalog, Power BI, and many more. And one of my favorites to mention is the fact that it also is compatible with PowerShell. So I know as data professionals, that's one of those things that some of us have embraced and some of us have not. It's a personal choice. But we were saying, no, this PowerShell thing is not going to catch on. It definitely has, and it's continuing forward into the cloud along with everything else. The other thing about the data lake is performance. What it does is it stores parts of each file over a number of individual servers. This allows to improve the read throughput when reading the files in parallel and is fantastic in giving performance for data analytics. So like I said, just a high-level overview. That was a lot of information in a short period of time. But now we need to move on to our data stream. So as I had mentioned, this is the stream of analytics the stream of data that's going to come into your data lake. These are real-time event processing. They're scalable to up to a gigabyte a second and increasing constantly. Microsoft is constantly working on each of these products to make them better, faster, stronger. Oh no, maybe that was Superman. But Microsoft is doing it too. Really, they are. So it does allow you to monitor and adjust the scale and the speed of the jobs in your Azure portal to scale those from a few kilobytes to gigabytes or more, depending on how you want those events processed. Stream analytics is a variation of T-SQL, and it also has the IntelliSense that we all rely on, which is quite important. And it allows you to quickly and easily implement time series queries, including temporal-based joins, windowed aggregates, temporal filters, and many more. In addition, in-browser query testing against a small data file enables quick, iterative development. This gives you a great way to do demos for clients or quickly test something out. With the ability to internally maintain a state, the service provides repeatable results, ensuring it's possible to archive events and reapply processing in the future, always getting you the same result. It enables customers to go back in time and investigate computations when doing root cause analysis, what-if analysis, and others. So one of the examples I like to give about this is because my background is in banking, so one of the nice things about something like this is, think of an ATM. There's transactions going through ATMs all across the country if you're a countrywide bank, right? So you've got probably hundreds, maybe even thousands of these ATMs. All of that data can be coming in through your stream, and you're always checking it for fraud. This can allow you to, when you find an issue, you can go back and look for similar types of fraud that have happened maybe nearby. So if somebody in one evening is hitting a number of ATMs and taking them down, or just through vandalism, never mind theft or anything else, then you can start to see if there's patterns. Years ago, even back as early as 2010, this type of technology didn't exist. Quite often we'd come into the bank in the morning, we'd realize that a teller or a ATM had been hit, as we called it, and it was down. But then we would realize that, 4 blocks over, another ATM was hit, and then 5 blocks or 10 blocks past that, another one was hit. But we wouldn't find out until the morning. Now, that is almost real time. You can do that analysis as that data is coming in, set with jobs, and then allow that to notify an operator, your security, or someone else. Streaming is offered through Microsoft in the cloud as a unit usage, and the amount of data processed is pay-as-you-go. This usage is derived based on the volume of the events and a whole bunch of information to do with the computing power and the provisioning within the cluster. So there's a lot more to this. So I would recommend if this is something that you would like to use in your corporation, that you definitely check it out. It's nice that the reference data can be historical data or simply non-streaming data that changes less frequently over time in the stream analytics jobs. This allows you to do comparisons and allows you to treat all of the data, whether it's incoming event data or less frequently changing reference data. It allows you to ingest it in real time to perform transformations for your analytics and determinations. So let's move on to Hadoop. Hadoop is big data. This is our Twitter feeds to industrial sensors, big data being collected over ever-escalating volumes at increasingly higher and higher velocities and in expanding formats. For big data to provide actionable intelligence or even insights, we must be able to figure out a way to collect the relevant data as well as ask the right questions. We're not going to be able to just take a lump of data and turn it into action without knowing what we can do with it. We need to be able to obviously access it, but we probably need to clean it. It needs to be analyzed in some useful way and then presented in a way that is meaningful to the client. So Hadoop integrates well with the business intelligence tools such as Power BI and Excel, SQL Server analysis services, and reporting services, as well as some web apps and regular SQL databases. It uses both Java and Python languages that can be installed with script actions. These are efficient and economical, and the data is often stored in an Azure Blob storage, or now in Data Lake. Virtual network support for HDInsight clusters can be used with Azure Virtual Network to support isolation of cloud resources, or even hybrid scenarios that link with cloud resources in your own data center, so in private clouds as well. But there's a huge grouping of tools that come with this. It's quite an expanded area for big data. This is our Hive data warehouse storage is built on Hadoop, and it allows you to query and manage large data sets in distributed storage by using a SQL-like language called HiveQL. When you run Hive, it translates queries into a series of MapReduce objects. Now, Hive is conceptually closer to a relational database management system than Pig is, but it's therefore appropriate for use with more structured data. So there is a lot of different pieces, and I've outlined just a little bit here on this slide of each one because there's too many of me to go into directly. So I wanted, though, you to have an idea of what this environment looks like and what it sounds like. Some of these names, when I bring them up in conversation at family events, my kids will look at me and just wonder what I'm talking about when I say I'm scripting a pig. So they think that's quite funny, but and the names are, but it also makes them sometimes a little bit hard to remember. So this is a great slide to reference back to if you hear some of these words, and I'm sure they're in an Urban Dictionary somewhere. So the data factory, I think I had mentioned that this is our traditional SSIS in the cloud. It automates and controls movement and transformations of data. It's your typical ETL. We do a lot of this in banking, the hybrid model from raw to ready to use data. It's typically used by retailers to generate personalized product recommendations based on customers' browsing behavior. Very typical to what you see when you go to Amazon and you buy a book. It'll recommend to you another book that is very similar that it thinks that you're going to find useful or interesting. Game studios use these to understand the effectiveness of their marketing campaigns. And Data Factory works across on-premise and cloud data sources and SaaS to ingest, prepare, and transform your data into something that can be published. Typically, we use Data Factory to compose services into managed data flow pipelines to transform your data using services. We monitor all of the data flow pipelines from a single unified view to easily pinpoint where the issues are and to set up monitoring alerts. So this is really great for that huge amount of data that's come into your data lake. And if we go back to my ATM example, this is where the process would happen that could produce the alerts to allow you to know that your ATM has been hit and be notified within minutes instead of hours or even days. Our data catalog. This is the insider knowledge. This is an underutilized service that has evolved slowly over the years. It certainly hasn't evolved as quickly from the on-premise to the cloud as some of our other tools, but it's by no means any less important. This is, if you think about the last time you went to a new client site or the last time you started a new job, this is the information we all wish we had at that particular point. This is the insider knowledge that we didn't know existed until you came across it by accident. Quite often when I go into new client sites for different banks, I'll ask them if they have a DDL or documentation or information on their business rules. And I'll get the answer, yeah, they're in Joe's head. Or, no, Jane was working on that, but then she got transferred to a new project. So these are the information pieces that we all wish that we had, and this new solution in the cloud is quite useful. There's quite a bit of documentation about where to find something if it exists, how many versions of it. You can determine, is it a file directory or is it on SharePoint? This is really our subject matter expert. This is the user who has all the information in their head, but now it's available in the cloud. So a user, oops, sorry about that. So a user has questions about an information asset. He needs to locate the expert on the team or whoever's responsible for engaging in that, or who has that information in their head. They may be transferred to a different department or even to a different building, or not even with the company any longer at all. In this case, there's no explicit connection between the data and those with expertise and their perceptions on how it's used. The idea is to create and maintain documentation for a data source that's complex and time-consuming. The challenge of making that documentation readily available who uses the data source is even more so, and that's where the data catalog comes into effect. It's not just a collection of documents on a SharePoint site, but an evolving information storage that can be updated as you use it. This slide I took also from the Microsoft site. I find it's quite useful in just understanding how data catalog flows together. It allows you to search things for just informational purposes. There's all sorts of metadata and expert content that allows you to understand it. So as you're going through a project, once an item has been created, or if it didn't even exist, you can create that item, you can add different bits of information to it, and then anytime somebody touches that item to get information, they can also add to it. So it builds over time, that storage. It's not like what we used to do in IT is when I would have a new employee start, if there was a system or an area that we didn't understand very well, their first task was to sit down and learn everything about that and then put it into a document. Well, that's great for that moment in time, but as we know, everything is always evolving. So the idea is that this can continually evolve as your projects evolve and as your data evolves. So it takes that understanding into consumption, which is really what we want, and that allows for that point in time situation. But it also allows you to contribute. That's the key to this. I love this because it allows you to tag things, you can add to the documentation, and you can publish it. So it can be evolving and publishing and keeping everyone up to date as you go through the life cycle of your data. Particularly in banks, I do quite a few conversion projects to new data platforms. And that data is a point in time, but it's never systems that are that old, some that go back to the 1970s in particular, are not well understood by anyone but the individual expert on that team. And getting all of that information out of their head is really difficult. So as you're doing a big project like that, if you are documenting and understanding that data, then every time a new system is built off of that, then you can evolve your data and your documentation, and you will never be out of date in your data. I think this is a fantastic revolutionary way of doing things. I don't know why we haven't done this in the past, and it's an area I expect to have a new presentation on shortly in the future. And that takes us through to Intelligentia Apparatus. Now that's Latin for intelligence from the machine. And the reason I say that is because every time I think of machine learning, I think of Harry Potter. I think of wizardry and magic, because I don't know if it's my age or the fact that I've got teens that just recently went through the Harry Potter craze, but there's something about magic that is just exciting. And all that the machine learning does, it just seems like magic to me. There's so many tools in there. The predictive analytics that we can do off of that are astounding. So this is the technique of data science that helps computers learn from existing data in order to forecast future behaviors, outcomes, and trends. That just screams magic to me. It's got some really important and fantastic case uses. One of the best ones is fraud detection, or next best product. Predictive analytics uses various math formulas and algorithms to analyze historical and current data for patterns and trends, and uses that information to forecast future events. This is how we determine if a fraud has happened on your Visa card. Actually, just this past weekend in Canada was Thanksgiving dinner, and a relative, my kid's grandparent, was here, and he was asking me, how is it that Visa knows that I didn't make this transaction in Boston when I live here in British Columbia? And I said, well, this is what this machine learning is all about. It's analyzing that data as it comes in. They see the trends that this fellow has probably never left Canada in the last 20 years. So the fact that he made a transaction in in Boston is not likely going to be him. So they'll flag that immediately for someone to take a look at and make a determination. So these have really evolved as our world has evolved, and the case uses are just phenomenal. There's huge amounts of them. So what I want to show you next is a quick demo. I want to give you an idea of some of the things that are happening with this data and how it's being used. So I don't have the ability to see faces or talk to you to get a whole lot of feedback, but I'm going to try the best I can with this. So what I'm going to do is close that slide deck, and I'm going to bring up my Skype. So I don't know if you've seen these before, but there's a couple of new bots available for Skype, which I quite like. And this is Murphy. Now Murphy works off of an algorithm that takes a what-if question and turns it into a picture. And you can give him feedback. So one of the ones I did as I was preparing to do these demos is, what if Miss Piggy was the Mona Lisa? So Murphy comes back to me and says, okay, this is what you asked me. I'm going to attempt to look at, I will attempt to picture that. What does that mean to me? And then he gives me a grouping of different options to return to tell him what I think of that. So he's given me this picture at the bottom that shows the Mona Lisa as Miss Piggy. So I can pick any one of these faces to return to him and tell him what I think. So what if I just tell him, I didn't really like it. Let's see what he says. So what does Murphy have to say about that? So then he says, oh, here's an idea. And he gives me a slightly different one. Yeah, okay. So that's not all that exciting. So we want something a little bit different. So what if I was the Hulk? So here he says, I need to upload a photo that represents me so that he can try and figure out that question. So I can take a general photo that I've taken recently of myself and put that in. We'll see what he says. So he tells me that he's received the attachment, and this is what he gives me back. Well, I'm not sure I really like that. I wonder if he can do better. Ah, that's a better photo. I like that one a bit better. So I can take that and I can save that for later. Put it on my desktop. Send it to my kids. My oldest daughter absolutely loves the Hulk, so I'll send that to her. So that's pretty cute. So that's an interesting what-if question. So one of the ones that I know that Reed does not like is, what if Donald Trump was Cinderella? So here we are as Donald Trump is Cinderella. I'll have to make that a bit bigger, I think, so that you can see it better. There we go. There's Donald Trump's face as Cinderella. And it even tells you down here what your question was so that you remember why you did something so heinous and remind you who he is. So he can be followed on Twitter at #ProjectMurphy. And he's an easy download on Skype as well. So let's close that out. This is the new bots that are available for Skype, and you can find Murphy here along with some of his other friends that are done in the same format. But this is one of my favorites. So this is your face. So the way this one works is it is facial recognition. So this is the early stages of facial recognition, but it does give you an idea of what it can do in terms of noticing things. So here is a picture from my recent summer vacation to Europe. I went to Madame Tussauds Wax Museum. So unfortunately that is not the real Picard. However, he does say that he's going to take a look at this from left to right. he notices that he says, I'm about 40. I think he's just trying to make me feel good because I'm 46, but he's pretty close. I'm bespectacled, which is kind of cute. Yes, I do wear glasses, and I have a tendency to grin enormously. So he's right on that. And then he notices this, which I find very fascinating, because when I first, not only when we took the picture, but when I first looked at the picture, I didn't realize this fellow in the background. So here he is, photobombing my great shot with Captain Picard, and until I started working on this demo and just happened to have picked this picture, I didn't even notice he was there. So one of the fascinating things about this is we all have biases. And one of those biases is that we tend to not see things that we're not expecting or don't want to see. And I definitely was not expecting someone else in that picture. So I ended up with another person in that picture, and this bot was able to determine that. So it's another way to realize that there are things that the computers are going to be able to pick up on that will not only streamline what we do, but in some cases be slightly more accurate. And then, of course, he's got the last person that we have in here. So our Captain Picard, whether he was 53 when they took this a wax duplicate or not, I'm not quite sure about that. But I do like his sense of humor. He's always got something interesting to say. So when I saw this, and I saw that he was able to pick up things that I wasn't expecting, it made me wonder what he was like at picking up things, other things that weren't expected. So I took this avatar of that my daughter drew for me, and I put that in. So I was wondering what he would think of that. How would he recognize that as an actual picture? And he says, I've sent him a close-up of 2 zebras in a mug. So he obviously realizes that that is not a human, which is quite interesting. I like that about it. It really shows how it has evolved and how it can tell the difference between what's real and what's not. So another thing I did then was I took something that was not just a traditional picture. I took my driver's license. So here's a picture of my driver's license, and it's got what I thought was an interesting picture, but keeping in mind that these are absolutely identical photos. The same photo is used here as well as here. So in the first one, I look like a listless old man, and in the second one, I look like a 31-year-old woman. So it's interesting to note how much detail it's able to determine. One is a larger picture, and the other is a smaller picture. So the amount of detail that's visible, as well as the fact that it's a scanned copy of a bad picture of what have you, right? The quality of this data is not exactly ideal. So the next thing I did was take a picture. Now this one is of my daughter with the Hulk. So I wanted to know if he's going to be able to, because it's not the greatest quality. And what he's saying is there's few people sitting on trains, more faces. So he wants me to give him more faces because he's not recognizing that these are actual faces. So the quality of this photo is not that fantastic, but it tells you that there are limitations as well as benefits to using this. One of the things that Microsoft has recently used this for is determination of happiness in their different stores. So what Microsoft has done is put kiosks in each of their Microsoft stores to determine what, oops, got to go through the slides quickly to get to the end. Sorry about that. So what they did is they put kiosks in all of their stores in their different locations, and you can look at the kiosk and it will read your facial expression, and it sends constant data to Microsoft, and they are using that data to determine down to the minute how happy people in that particular store are. So it's just another idea of data stream and how that data can be used. Once you have a sentiment, so if I go back to my original question of you're sitting at your desk and someone comes along for wanting to determine something about their marketing campaign, there is the possibility now that you can run that marketing campaign in front of someone in a kiosk and you can ask them questions, but you can also read their facial expressions to see how those go along with the information that they give you. So it can tell you a lot more about a person and therefore a lot more about your marketing campaign. So that's another good use situation. So what I've hoped to do is give you enough information about the Cortana Suite to allow you to determine what it can be used for, and as issues come up in meetings or just talking to coworkers, you can find different ways to use this information to find solutions for your business. And that's the end of the presentation, unless we've got some questions, Ree.
Actually, so at this point, I don't have any questions at all. Somebody loves your though, by the way, your at the beginning. That was a quick comment. So, I saw this session in Kansas City, so you answered several of the questions that I had there. And of course, as you know, I'm a regular DBA. I don't use a lot of the tools that you do. So this was all brand spanking new to me. I was obviously blown away by Murphy and how they use data and that kind of thing. Did you mention here how judging facial expressions helps others? Did you mention that today? I remember you mentioning that in Kansas City, how, Murphy recognizing emotions on facial expressions.
Oh, no, I didn't, but that is a good point. Determining that emotion, I was saying how at the Microsoft kiosk stores, they do that. They determine the emotion of the person to determine how happy people in that store are. But that's a good point, Ree. This session is exactly for that typical DBA that doesn't normally use this type of information. But it's a great way to have the ability to grow any business, or at least know what those things are that are out there. And worst case scenario, you found a new bot that's fun to play with your kids, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So there's always that as well. So I'll switch to the...
Go ahead, sorry. Well, I was going to say really quickly, one of the emotion things that you mentioned is a practical use for it as not even just fun. Quite often, autistic people have trouble recognizing facial emotions on faces, and that was something that could help build that skill. So
yes, definitely.
I think that's the most exciting piece of the at least applicable use. I mean, finding that HDInsight is down is pretty cool too, but that one I was able to immediately apply to people in my life and go, I know who could benefit from that.
Yeah, that's very true.
Okay, so I did pick, I wonder if she's still on the call. I did pick, we just lost her, but I have her email address, the winner of the Amazon gift card. I have her contact information here. I picked Christy Parker. Christy Parker actually right at the beginning of the webinar was when I was going through my slides, went on to Twitter and followed the PASSWIT account. So I'll send her contact. I'll send her some information so we can get her Amazon gift card to her. So and then I have a backup just in case I can't reach her. So Melody, thank you very, very much for this session today. If you'll send me your slide deck, I'll make sure that it gets uploaded along with this recording and my slide deck to the WIP page. And that way any of you guys who want to go back and follow up on any of this information can easily do so. So thank you very much, guys. Oops, hold on. I may have a question now before you go. Wait. I can't get it. There we go. Okay, somebody's commenting that they actually lost connectivity a few times, and so they were just looking forward to watching the video. So again, thanks very much, everybody. Have a great day. And if any of you are on the call that are going to be at Summit, Melody and I will each be at the community zone at different times. We'll be at the Birds of a Feather luncheon, which is really, really important. There's a variety of different tables on different topics. We'll be at the WIT luncheon one day. And we're attempting to get together a PASSWIT cocktail hour, either on Wednesday or Friday. So if any of you guys are coming to Summit, make sure you check out some information to try to find us, and we'd love to have a conversation with you and just tell us that you were here today. So thanks a lot, everybody, and have a great day.